It has often been said that when small men cast long shadows, the sun is about to set. We're living in a day and age in which small-minded, empty-hearted, secular people are casting a long shadow of influence in our society, and that alone ought to tell us we're moving closer and closer to the time of the end. When we ask the question, who secularized America, it is obvious that a shift has been taking place for the last 50 years or more in American society. And the excuse always is, oh, it's not as bad as you Christians think it is. It's really not going in the direction that you're suggesting that it might go. And yet, decade after decade, we move further and further and further down the road away from the things of God. No, it's moving exactly where Christians have said it would go. Exactly where we've been concerned that the problems would come. For when a society is dominated by secularism, the belief that there is no God, that we can do it on our own, that God is not relevant to the way we live our lives, or the way that we construct our families, or make our decisions, or build our values. When God is eliminated and secularism dominates, secularism always leads to materialism. The more things I have, the happier I'll be. And we fill our lives with stuff. And even many religious people are seduced by the influence of materialism from a secularistic society. Instead of valuing the moral principles of God, the importance of family life, the sanctity of marriage, we are swept up in that same material pursuit. That the more things I can get, the more things I can have, the happier I will be. And the problem is, you can have all of those things, but those things will not give meaning and purpose to your life. Your stuff won't love you back. Your stuff will not give you meaning and purpose. After a while, it's just stuff. It gets old, it ages, it gets dusty, it falls apart. All of a sudden, the new car loses its luster. The new toy is no longer something the kids want to play with. The new gadget that you just had to have, the new latest electronic device that was going to make your life easier and less complicated has made it more complicated. And eventually, materialism leads to relativism, in which there are no absolute truths in a secular society. Everything is up for grabs. Truth is relative to the circumstance of the moment, to the experience of the individual. So what may be true for me may not be true for you, etc. And we ought to just kind of live and let everybody do what they want to do, and eliminate any sense of moral decency in society. And when secularism and materialism and relativism have run their full course, it always leads to mysticism. That's what Francis Schaeffer was talking about 40 years ago, when he said, because he lived in Europe and he saw what had happened there, eventually America will follow the pattern and trend of Europe. It will become more and more secular. God will be eliminated from any public relevance in the way we do life in America, and eventually all of that materialism will leave us empty. People will turn to mysticism. They'll believe in the devil, but they won't believe in God. They'd rather go to a seance than to go to church. They'd rather read the tarot cards than read the Bible. All of the things that we believe are part of the whole basis of American society will be eliminated, and when the vacuum exists spiritually, Satan always runs into the vacuum. Error will always fill the vacuum of truth. And eventually, the creation replaces the creator. And just like ancient pagans, we end up worshiping trees, bushes, plants, mountains, sacred places on the planet, and ultimately we end up worshiping ourselves. Man falls in love with himself and in love with nature and forgets the God who created it all in the first place. Now, there's nothing wrong with loving your pets and loving nature and having a concern about being responsible for the planet. I think that's part of the spiritual mandate that God gives to all people. But at the same time, the creation doesn't take the place of God. The creation won't love you back. The tree is not going to love you back. The bush is not going to give meaning and purpose to your life, etc. No, we're building our own modern Tower of Babel, thinking that we'll just kind of someday work our way to heaven by being kind to the environment. But in reality, we need to understand that first and foremost, we need to worship the God who created it all in the first place. The Bible reminds us there's a way that seems right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death and destruction. That when the wise become foolish and the fools seem to be wise, society is in serious trouble. Then we have come to a time when those who stand up for the things of God and the truth of God and the principles of God are criticized as narrow-minded bigots who don't understand what life is really all about. And if we dare speak up and say anything about it, the criticism ratchets even stronger than ever before. Well, I say it's time for Christian people to come out of their closet of spiritual indifference and stand up for the Word of God. Everybody else is out of the closet, and the Christians have gone into the closet. It's time to step up, proclaim the truth to a society that desperately needs God. 21 centuries ago, the Apostle Paul predicted what would happen in the future. In a moment, we'll come back, we'll read that prediction, and we'll see how it affects life today in our society.